4 minutes and 20 seconds. That's how long it allegedly took Iran's Fattah 2 hypersonic missile to travel from a launch site near Tehran to a military facility in central Israel. Write that number down, because Israel's missile warning system requires 6 full minutes to complete its alert cycle. Detection, trajectory calculation, alert transmission, siren activation. 6 minutes for a process that has to finish before a single civilian can reach a shelter. The missile, according to the claim, arrived 20 seconds after the sirens finally sounded. Not 20 minutes, not 2 minutes, 20 seconds, which means that for the vast majority of that flight, traveling at Mach 15, roughly 3.1 miles every single second, there was no warning, no shelter instruction, no time, just a missile moving faster than any alert system built to stop it. And here's the question that Israel's defense establishment and every Western military analyst who tracks hypersonic weapons development now has to answer. If the warning system can't outrun the weapon, what exactly is the warning system for? Before this report is over, you'll understand why the most alarming part of the Fattah 2 isn't its speed. It's what that speed does to the commanders who have 4 minutes to decide if it's nuclear. To understand why 4 minutes and 20 seconds changes everything, you need to understand the system it just exposed. Israel operates one of the most layered missile defense architectures on the planet. It was not built for one threat. It was built for all of them simultaneously. At the top of the stack sits Arrow 3, designed to intercept ballistic missiles at altitudes above 100 kilometers, the edge of space where trajectories are predictable and interception windows are wide. Below that, David's Sling handles medium-range threats, optimized for missiles traveling between Mach 5 and Mach 8. And at the base, Iron Dome handles the short-range rockets and drones that have defined decades of conflict along Israel's borders. Each layer was designed around a core assumption that missile defense works by predicting where a missile will be, not where it is. Interceptors don't chase. They calculate a future position and place themselves in front of it. The system is precise, expensive, and under normal conditions, remarkably effective. The foreshadowing is built into that word, normal, because every calculation in that layered defense, every intercept trajectory, every alert timeline, every shelter instruction was calibrated against missiles that follow predictable flight paths at speeds the system was designed to handle. The Fattah 2, according to Iran's claims, is not that missile. It flies below 50 kilometers during its glide phase beneath Arrow 3's operating ceiling. It travels at Mach 15, nearly double David Sling's optimal intercept range, and it maneuvers during descent, introducing trajectory changes that shatter the predictive models that make interception possible in the first place. The system wasn't broken, it was outpaced. From this moment, you have exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds to understand how every layer of that defense architecture fails one by one against a single weapon flying below the floor they were all designed to cover. The core problem with the Fattah 2 is not that Israel has no defense against hypersonic missiles. It's that the defenses it has were each built for a different threat, and none of them were built for this one. Walk through the timeline analysts have reconstructed from the claimed flight data. At minute 1, the Fattah 2 reaches approximately 40 kilometers altitude. Satellites detect the launch within seconds. That part works. Ground radar begins tracking, but here is where the first gap opens. Arrow 3 operates above 100 kilometers. The Fattah 2 is already below its floor. The system designed to intercept Iran's ballistic missiles is looking in the wrong part of the sky. At minute 2, the missile separates from its booster. The flight profile changes. It is no longer climbing. It is gliding, flattening its trajectory, descending into the altitude band where David's Sling is theoretically active. David's Sling is optimized for targets moving at Mach 5 to Mach 8. The Fattah 2 is moving at Mach 15. The intercept window is measured not in minutes but in fractions of seconds. At minute 3, the missile begins maneuvering. This is where the system doesn't just struggle, it fails at a structural level. Missile defense predicts future position based on current trajectory. A missile that changes its trajectory mid-flight invalidates every calculation that preceded the change. The interceptor is aimed at a point in space the missile is no longer heading toward. At minute 4, warning sirens activate. Civil defense has finally completed its detection to alert cycle. Shelters are open. Instructions are broadcasting. 20 seconds later, according to the claim, the missile impacts. Civilians who heard the siren had 20 seconds. In a multi-story building, reaching a reinforced shelter requires between 45 seconds and 3 minutes, depending on floor and mobility. The siren arrived too late for the shelter to matter. The unexpected complication in all of this is not the missile itself. It's what the missile's flight time does to the commanders. Military commanders, upon detection of a launch from Iran, have historically operated with a 10 to 15 minute decision window. That window allowed time for threat assessment, confirmation of targeting, and the beginning of retaliatory planning. With a 4-minute, 20-second flight time, that window collapses to almost nothing. And the most critical decision inside that window, a decision that no automated system is authorized to make, is whether the incoming missile carries a conventional warhead or a nuclear one. 4 minutes. Everything you've just heard describes one missile, one flight, one defense gap. What comes next is the reason this weapon isn't just an Iranian problem and why the U.S. and Taiwan are now recalculating everything. Here is the recontextualization that changes the entire frame of this story. The Fattah 2 is not primarily a weapon designed to defeat Israel's missile defense. It is a weapon designed to demonstrate publicly in real operational conditions that layered missile defense as a strategic concept has a ceiling. And Iran just showed the world where that ceiling is. The layered defense model, Arrow, David's Sling, Iron Dome, backed by early warning satellites and civil alert infrastructure, is not unique to Israel. Variants of it exist in the United States. Taiwan operates comparable architecture against Chinese ballistic missile threats. South Korea, Japan, and NATO members in Eastern Europe all rely on the same foundational assumption, that detection gives enough time for interception and shelter. The Fattah 2, if the claimed performance figures are accurate, doesn't just challenge that assumption in Israel. It challenges it everywhere those systems are deployed. China is actively developing its own hypersonic glide vehicle program. Russia already deploys the avant-garde hypersonic system operationally. North Korea has tested hypersonic missile technology. The global proliferation of this weapons class is not a future concern. It is a present reality. And the layered missile defense systems that U.S. allies have spent decades and hundreds of billions of dollars building were not designed for this threat envelope. Arrow 3 needs to be redesigned or supplemented to cover altitudes below 50 kilometers against hypersonic gliders. David Sling's intercept envelope needs to extend to Mach 15. The civil warning system needs to compress its alert cycle from 6 minutes to under 4. A computational and infrastructure challenge with no current solution. Iran's choice to announce the Fattah 2's claimed performance publicly with specific figures, a specific flight time, a specific target description was itself a strategic act. It was not a military briefing. It was a message delivered not just to Israel, but to every nation whose security architecture rests on the assumption that warning time is a reliable resource. That 4-minute window isn't just a defense gap. There's one consequence of it that no government briefing has addressed publicly, and it's the one that changes the logic of nuclear deterrence itself. The unresolved thread at the center of this story is the nuclear decision window. When a ballistic missile launches from Iran toward Israel, commanders have historically had 10 to 15 minutes to assess the threat, determine warhead type, and begin response sequencing. That window, while never comfortable, allowed for a degree of deliberation. With a 4-minute, 20-second flight time, that window no longer supports deliberation. It barely supports detection. The scenario that defense analysts now openly discuss, a conventional hypersonic strike that a commander with 4 minutes and no confirmed warhead intelligence mistakes for a nuclear attack, is not a theoretical edge case. It is a realistic risk embedded in the operational parameters of this weapon system. The missile that allegedly arrived 20 seconds after the siren sounded did not just strike a military facility, it struck an assumption, and that assumption, that warning time is a reliable feature of modern warfare, is the foundation on which civilian populations, military planners, and nuclear doctrines around the world have been built. 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The clock that started at the hook is still running. Nobody has stopped it yet. The question this report leaves open is not one that governments are eager to answer publicly. If warning time is no longer a reliable asset, if the gap between launch detection and impact has been compressed below the minimum required for civilian protection and military deliberation, then the entire logic of civil defense, missile defense investment, and nuclear deterrence needs to be reconsidered. Drop a comment below with what you think the most urgent unanswered question is: the civilian shelter gap, the nuclear decision window, or the fact that Russia and China already have operational versions of this technology. If you want to keep following the strategic implications of what's changing in modern warfare, not just the weapon specifications, but what they mean for the people living under the systems designed to protect them, subscribe. The next video addresses which nation's missile defense architecture is most exposed if hypersonic proliferation continues at its current pace. That one is worth staying for.